analyzing your own performance, that's exactly where the trap snaps shut. Self-awareness, in its purest form, is a total miracle. It's what lets us grow, pivot, and become better versions of ourselves. But when it crosses that invisible line, when it stops being a compass and starts being a cage, it turns into constant self-policing. And man, that shift is subtle. It doesn't show up with sirens, it sneaks in through whispers. It starts when you question a choice, then a thought, then a feeling, and suddenly, you're questioning your very right to exist. Your mind starts running on two separate tracks. One part of you is living, while the other part is just watching you live. And that observer in the back of your head, it never clocks out. It's constantly critiquing, judging, and auditing your life. You pick out a shirt and it asks what that says about your ego. You crack a joke and it immediately analyzes if it landed or if you sounded desperate. You get angry and it calls you immature. Eventually, you stop actually feeling and start thinking about how you're feeling. It's like living under a permanent spotlight, even when you're totally alone. You aren't just existing anymore, you're monitoring yourself. And that constant inner surveillance just eats away at your spontaneity until there's nothing left. Spinoza used to say that being conscious of your freedom is the highest form of liberty. But what if that consciousness gets so loud it kills the very freedom you were looking for? Too much self-awareness doesn't make us free. It turns us into actors in a play where we're the only and harshest audience member. One of the nastiest symptoms of this is emotional displacement. You start living your life like a spectator. You don't feel sad, you just register the fact that you're sad. You don't feel happy, you just note that things are going well. It's like you're watching a movie of your own life, and over time, that creates this weird, numb feeling. Nothing really hits you. Everything gets filtered through this analytical lens, and no matter how hard you try, you can't seem to get back to that raw, direct experience of just being. Psychologists call this rumination. It's a thought that spins in circles with zero resolution. While reflection is a path that actually leads somewhere, rumination is a maze. You get lost in there, even while you're telling yourself you're making progress. And the twisted part? The harder you try to think your way out, the deeper you sink. You analyze your trauma, your flaws, your baggage, but instead of healing, you're just cataloging the damage. You can name everything, explain everything, and understand everything, and yet you're still miserable. Because here's the truth, understanding isn't the same as healing. Feeling things requires surrender, and overanalyzing is the exact opposite of surrendering. That's why deeply lucid people are usually exhausted. Their mind has become a hall of mirrors, and too many mirrors don't give you a better view. They just blind you with the glare. Maybe you're listening to this and it sounds way too familiar. Maybe you feel stuck in this loop of watching yourself, and even though you know why you do it, you can't stop. Look, you're not alone. And more importantly, this isn't a defect. It's a survival mechanism you built back when thinking felt safer than feeling. But maybe it's time to retire it. Getting out of your head isn't about losing your mind, it's about reclaiming your life. Sometimes, the only thing we need is a moment of total forgetting. A moment where the brain shuts up and the body takes over. Like dancing in the dark, or laughing at something stupid, or just existing without needing a reason why. Escaping the self-awareness trap isn't about more analysis, it's about courage. The guts to trust your own existence. To feel without mapping it out. To fail without an explanation. To live without a script. There's a point where thinking stops being a tool and starts being a vice. You know that feeling, maybe you're in it right now, where thinking doesn't solve anything anymore, it just breeds more thinking. It's a closed loop. It's like trying to put out a fire by blowing on the flames. At first, your brain feels like an ally. It offers control and predictability. It's the fortress for those of us who grew up too fast and learned that the world can be a pretty cold place. So you anticipate, you calculate, and you think you're protecting yourself. But what started as armor turned into a prison. It's restless brain syndrome. Even when things are great, your mind is scanning for what could go wrong because it doesn't know how to rest. To a mind like that, resting feels like being vulnerable. There's a name for this: addiction to lucidity. It's a compulsion to find meaning in every little thing, to analyze the analysis itself. And when your brain finds a second of silence, it fills it with what-ifs. What if I'd said this? What if they meant that? Those aren't questions, they're bars on a cell. Science calls this hyperactivity in the default mode network, the part of the brain that kicks in when we're not focused on a task. In deep thinkers, that switch is stuck in the on position. The result: you're always stuck inside your own head, even when you're standing right in front of the world. It's ironic. An overdose of lucidity produces the opposite of clarity. It just distorts and blocks everything. Like Nietzsche said, if you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you. Overthinking is that abyss starting to watch itself. You start seeing yourself as an equation to be solved. You try to find logic in your pain. Pero, look, sometimes pain doesn't have logic. It just is. And the more you try to dissect it, the further you get from actually healing. I know that trap. I've spent nights trying to put together an emotional jigsaw puzzle, replaying conversations and silences, trying to figure out where I messed up, only to realize the biggest mistake was thinking every pain needs to be decoded. Not every answer sets you free. Sometimes, the answer just confirms the size of the cage. Thinking is addictive because it feels like work. It gives you the illusion of progress. But usually, it's just a dog chasing its tail, exhausted, but convinced it's going somewhere. We fall for it because thinking feels safe, while the alternative, actually living, risking, and feeling, is terrifying. It's easier to think about love than to actually love. It's safer to think about changing than to actually change. But that safety is a trap. It numbs you. The prison of overthinking doesn't have iron bars. It has bars made of logic, and you're the one holding the keys. To get out, you don't need a new thought. You need a gesture, a risk, a surrender, something your brain can't plan. And if that step feels heavy, that's okay. Maybe the first act of freedom is just accepting that not everything needs to be understood. Some pains just need to be felt. Some decisions just need to be made. Deep thinkers have this habit of putting life on hold until it makes sense. But life wasn't meant to be figured out before it's lived. It happens in the mess, the stumbles, and the random bursts of laughter. You aren't a problem that needs a solution. Like Carl Rogers said, you're a process, a living, breathing mystery. The beauty is in the flow, not the answer. Living despite your mind means leaving some blank spaces. It means letting questions go unanswered and feelings exist without a why. It's saying yes to making mistakes. Perfectionism isn't excellence, it's just fear in a suit. There is so much power in accepting your own mess, in laughing at yourself, and realizing that sometimes what saves us isn't going deeper. It's finding some lightness. Lightness comes when you stop carrying the weight of the world. When you realize it's not your job to make sense of all of existence, it's enough to just make sense of your next step. Re-educate your heart. If the mind ties us to the past or the future, the heart is the only thing that lives in the now. And the now is the only place life is actually happening. You don't need to be all figured out to move forward. You don't need all the answers to be happy. The biggest paradox for a deep thinker is that the same mind looking for freedom is the one building the walls. If you've made it this far, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You know the weight of carrying thoughts like secrets. You know that hollow feeling of understanding everything while nothing actually changes. But healing isn't in thinking more. It's in letting go. It's accepting that the mystery of life isn't a problem to be solved. It's poetry to be experienced. Living despite your mind isn't about ignoring who you are. It's about including your depth without drowning in it. It's looking into the abyss and choosing to dance on the edge anyway. It's knowing you can dive into your pain, but you also have the right to come up for air and smile, even without a reason. When I was 19, I used to sit on a park bench every Sunday morning, totally alone. I wasn't exactly sad. I was just tired. It was this invisible weight. Back then, I thought overthinking meant I was mature, but I finally realized it was just loneliness wearing a mask of lucidity. I realized what maybe you're feeling today. I'm not the only one. There are others out there like us. People who feel too much, think too much, and love too much. People who feel like they're living on the fringes of the world. I created this space so we could breathe together. To remind us that we aren't broken, we're just intense. And yeah, intensity is exhausting, but it's also what lights up the room. Thanks for sticking around, and for letting my words hit home. If you felt even a little bit less alone today, then this conversation was worth it. Before you head out, check the link in the description or the pinned comment. It breaks down the process that's helped thousands of people get off autopilot and start living for real. You know the drill. Like the video, drop that one philosophical quote you usually only share at 3 a.m. and subscribe, because the algorithm only respects the ones who aren't afraid to go deep. And don't click those other videos on the screen just yet. Why? Because one of them is going to show you a truth about yourself you might not be ready for. But when you are, I'll be there.